tonight on the program. We hope you're being strengthened and blessed in the things of the Lord. I'm going to read to you this evening from the book of Jeremiah, and that'll be the 17th chapter. And again, as always, you need to read through this stuff yourself. We just have a little bit of time, so we're going to hit the highlights of it. As we look at the situation that we're in today, and many people dismayed, and don't let your hearts be afraid, for sure. This thing is not over. It's not close to being over. And we're going to talk about that tonight. Jeremiah was a prophet that was trying to wake up the nation of Israel before they would be captured and conquered by the Babylonian kingdom. Jeremiah preached to them. Jeremiah told them, but they would not listen. Everything that we do in society and in the world is pretty much a cycle. We do good, then we get lazy, then we go into sin, then we're judged, and days of evil comes upon us. If we could just see what was happening as it was happening, if our eyes could remain open, but the Bible warned us that that would not be the case as we approached the last days, as it has been in other times, but this time it will be worse. Simply because there are more of us in the world, and where we are, there is trouble. Always was, and always will be. Jeremiah did not want Israel to go into captivity. He said in these verses, he didn't desire the day, the woeful day, the day of sorrow. He didn't desire that. But now that the trouble had come, now that the trouble had befallen them, now that the enemy was turned loose, now that the sin was so rampant in Jerusalem that it was now calling for national judgment, he then said that he would wish that God would bring forth double destruction. At some point or the other, the barn has to be cleaned out. But in verse 17 of chapter 17, Jeremiah referred to it specifically as a day of evil. Let's read what it says. In verse 17, he says, "Be not a terror unto me," speaking to the Lord. "Thou art my hope in the day of evil." The day of evil has come about. The day of evil will come about because of us. Now, as we talk about this, we need to understand we've just come through this election deal. It's not that we hadn't talked about it and in detail shared it with you over the course of 4 years, telling you that from November to November you'd see the worst mess you ever seen in your life. And that has come to pass. It is true. There is no question there was massive cheating that took place in the election. There is no doubt that Donald Trump won the election. There is no question about that. The Democrats knew what they was going to do months and months ago when they came out on the world stage talking about that Donald Trump was not going to leave office willingly. That's because they knew what they was going to do. They knew the cheating that they was going to do, and they knew that it would be tracked. These things are not difficult to see if your eyes are open. But the Bible said that we would be in a spiritual slumber as these days come about, and that he said that there would be a darkness, and not just a darkness that would befall the people, but the Lord said there would be a gross darkness that would befall the people. And that gross darkness is on this country right now. Not because 10 million more people than voted for Trump last time voted for him this time. He doubled among the Hispanics. He doubled his votes among the blacks. Everyone in the Republican Party won their elections to the most part. They were supposed to lose all their seats in the Congress. Instead, they won a bunch of them. They were supposed to lose the Senate. And instead, it looks like they're going to keep the Senate and gain a bunch of seats in the Congress. The point is everybody down the ticket that was Republican won. The reason that they won was because of Donald Trump. There's no question about that. So it's mighty strange that a person could get 10 million more votes than he got last time. Double his votes with the minorities. Everybody on his ticket beneath him wins, and he loses. That defies the laws of averages for sure. We know this oddity took place. Trump goes to bed on Tuesday night, election night, when an election is actually supposed to be over. Not just ahead, but far ahead in all of these swing states. More than 600,000, almost 800,000 votes ahead in Pennsylvania, only to wake up the next morning and find his lead all but gone. What happened? Well, all those mail-in ballots started coming in. There was a truck that was videoed coming in around 4 o'clock in the morning to the voting precinct, bringing a box of unsecured ballots. Come to find out that whenever the Democrats in Pennsylvania at 4 o'clock in the morning counted those votes, it was more than 130,000 votes. All 130,000 of them went to Joe Biden. The law of averages simply speaks against that. Fact of the business is, that is an absolute impossibility. Then there was a water main in Atlanta where Trump was winning. But all of a sudden a city water line busted. And so those that counts the votes in Atlanta were sent home. Once the Republicans left, they locked the doors and the Democrats sat down and continued the count. And overnight, a drastic shift, and then Donald Trump's losing the state that he was winning by large numbers. Then there is this voting machine glitch. These voting machines, same ones, run by the same people all across the nation, all of a sudden glitched. Some of the poll workers who had worked the polls all their lives said that they put an update on the computer, on the machine, the voting machine, the day before the election, and that they had never in their lives ever seen anything like that. Then all of a sudden, at approximately the same time that night, all the machines started glitching. When the machine glitched, it took 6,000 in Atlanta, it took 6,000 votes that were Trump votes and gave them to Biden. Isn't it strange that 130,000 pieces of mail or votes could come in and all 130,000 of them be for one man? Isn't it strange that just right at a proper time, a water line busts in the city of Atlanta, all the Republicans are sent home, and once they leave, the Democrats lock the door and start counting? Isn't it strange that all the machines could glitch at the same time and then give nobody but Biden the votes? Now, all of this is clear and it's obvious. And what I want you to understand is that this is not over. This is going to the courts, this day of evil and its reckoning. It's going to the courts. The media don't call the election. Now that there's such rampant and widespread fraudulent voting, it's going to be checked and is being checked right now. Now remember, I'm doing the program last Wednesday, you're watching it Sunday. So at the time you're watching it, I don't know the details that's taking place. But as I'm here Wednesday doing the program, I'm going to tell you this. By the time you watch the program, there should be a large number of whistleblowers coming forth. A large number of whistleblowers coming forth from the Postal Service. There should be a large number of whistleblowers coming forth from all that. These people are afraid because they know they're dealing with thugs. This is for power, and people will kill for power. But there will be a large upswing in whistleblowers that will start coming out, and you will see it clear, and it will be clear. Now, as we deal with these events, we must understand this, that where all of those things that I just made mention of, coincidences? I don't think so. All that just fell in the right place. We have to remember this, that there is a God in heaven, and that God in heaven's will be done. Now, God uses certain people, certain human beings at certain times, and they don't have to be water walkers. They don't have to be the God list of society. God uses men at certain times in history to bring forth God's testimony. It takes a certain mentality. It takes a certain type of person. If you want praise leaders and worship leaders, you got to go get you a praise and a worship leader. If you want a warrior to stand at the gate so that you praisers and prayers can continue praising and praying in your church, you're going to need you a warrior at the gate. You want to get you somebody like King David. God calls men for testimony. The Bible tells us that God appointed 2 witnesses and will appoint them for the Great Tribulation period. The Bible tells us that every single thing that this evil Antichrist world does during their testimony to try to kill them or stop them, the Bible tells us that in the manner of which they try to kill them, they themselves will be destroyed in like manner. So I want you to keep this in perspective. There is nothing this deep state machine has tried to do to Donald Trump that worked. Nothing. Not yet. Nothing. If God's testimony through Donald Trump is to be worked out, it will be worked out. If God's testimony and manifestation through Donald Trump is not over, then though the entire world be against him, his testimony is not finished. And God will decide that, I promise you. Now, as we look around the court systems and understanding this is not over, it's going to court. Real clear politics has already withdrawn Pennsylvania from the Biden count. It's just that close now. This is going to the courts. Now, the question is at this point, can we trust the courts? Can we trust what's supposed to be the law in this country? Well, we have found out that really we can't. But again, I stress to you, this is all about a human being's testimony set forth by God. And if God is done with the testimony, just as he said with the 2 witnesses in Revelation, that there was nothing that could stop them until their testimony was finished. If God's testimony is not finished with Donald Trump is going to be the president. Whether or not the law does what the law is supposed to do, and if the law does what the law is supposed to do, this thing is hands down. There are major civil rights violations, federal law after federal law after federal law broke. Here are Democrats that is sitting in a room that federal law requires that the other side is able to see the votes being counted. But the Democrats won't let them do it. Put them 50 to 100 feet away from them. There were poll watchers looking in through a glass. And the Democrats took cardboard boxes and covered the glasses up. All of that is federal violations. If it goes to the law, and if the law is and will do what the law is supposed to do, this is a done deal. The second thing is that we may find God's hand, is that the Democrats' desire was to keep Ruth Bader Ginsburg, a sickly woman who couldn't stay awake, very bad off, keep her in there until they could cheat Trump out of the election, keep her on the Supreme Court. I told you from the beginning, 3 years ago, I told you the whole war here was about that Supreme Court. Well, all of a sudden, just a matter of weeks before the election, Ruth Bader Ginsburg dies. And all of a sudden, a godly woman, a judicial woman, and a strict conservative based upon constitutional law has become the member of the Supreme Court. You see, we see up to the corner, and God sees up to it and around it. It may have already been set so that justice can be done. We'll have to see about the law. But the one thing that we do know is this, that if God is not done with the testimony of Mr. Trump, though the world be against him, it will not prevail. So I want you to keep that in mind. Now, the next thing that I want us to talk about is this. I want us to talk about what I've shared with you for years now. The serpent mentality. You remember how that I've shared with you and told you that there's 4 degrees of sin: the sinner, the evil, the wicked, and the abomination. Some sinners are more wonderful than others, than people that's even in church. It is the evil. That means people who wants to hurt you. It is the wicked. That means people who no longer knows the difference between right and wrong. It is the abomination. Those are the ones that work against God, and those are the ones that David said, I hate them that hate thee. I hate them that hate God. Now, what we got here is we've got the serpents, and just in short, what I've told you before is that the serpent demands to be petted. The church has been taught a perversion of love, understanding that it was not the devil that instilled hatred in our hearts. Read Genesis 3:15. Once the world entered into its new cycle, once the devil entered into the world, once the serpent entered in, everything changed. Before the serpent entered in, there was no one here going to kill you, no one after you, no one that would destroy you, no one that would rob from you, no one that would steal from you, no one that would beat you, no one that would slander you. It wasn't in the world. But when Adam opened the door up and let the serpent in, everything changed. Now you had a murderer on the planet. Now you had a slanderer on the planet. Now you had someone in here that wanted to hurt you. And unless you hated that serpent, you would not survive. So it wasn't it wasn't the devil that instilled hatred into our hearts. Genesis 3:15, between the seed of the devil and the seed of the woman, God would place enmity. That pertains to the body of Christ. Enmity means hostility and hatred. We have to hate evil. If we don't, we will never be motivated to stop it. The serpent will always hate us the way the serpent is supposed to. And so the serpent uses everything within its power to get you to commit yourself to his direction. Then the serpent strikes you and you're gone. They demand that they be petted. They will not pet you. They will butcher you in broad daylight on the public streets. But they will demand that they be petted, always. Well, we have seen the butchery, the slander that has taken place over 4 years. And keep in mind, those that sow discord, the Bible says, is an abomination. We've seen the discord against Donald Trump. We've seen the repeated lies of which, through courts and through lawyers and through evil works, has never been able to manifest one single charge of illegality against Mr. Trump. Period. We've seen Mr. Trump's severed head held up by stars of Hollywood. We've seen guns, fake guns, pointed at his head and the trigger pulled by Snoop Doggy Dogg. All of them still maintain their positions, power, wealth, and money. Now Mr. Biden thinks that he's the president. And so now the serpents are calling for love, peace, joy, and happiness, unity.
But at least we can agree to be civil with one another. We have to put the anger and the demonization behind us. It's time for us to come together as a nation to heal. It's not going to be easy, but we have to try. This is the United States of America. And there's never been anything we've been unable to do, unable to accomplish when we've done it together.
Now you think you have office and civility comes out of your mouth? You and your peaceful protesters? You and your slandering mob? You and your butchers of a man's name? You and your constant ambush and attack upon the presidency of the United States? You now want civility. Well, it figures, because that's exactly what you serpents do. You kill, you bite, and you destroy. And then you demand everyone be civil to you. Dianne Feinstein, who's been one of the leaders for the Democrats in the Senate, found herself in great trouble. Fact of the business is, they are now wanting to remove her and threatening to remove her from her place of power. What terrible crime did this woman do that would make these peace lovers now and get along people now want to dismiss her? Here's what the article reads. Democrats are calling for Senator Dianne Feinstein to step down from her leadership position on the Senate Judiciary Committee. Old Senator Chucky Schumer. It says here that Schumer said Tuesday that he has had a serious talk with fellow Democrat Dianne Feinstein. What terrible crime did Miss Feinstein commit? Well, she hugged Lindsey Graham after the Supreme Court hearing to elect the new Supreme Court justice. She hugged a Republican. So Chucky Schumer has had a serious talk with her, and the Democrats seeking to remove her from office. For what? Because she hugged a Republican. We have the crime forensically laid out for you. Can't deny it. It's clear. Watch it for yourself. The evidence is clear. Here they are talking. Here they are shaking hands. Here they are whispering in one another's ear. Congratulations, you did a good job. And then the crime. Dianne Feinstein, from this community of people who now wants love, peace, joy, and happiness, get along, civility. She is now being threatened to be removed from her post as a Senate and a leader of the Democratic Party. Why? Because she hugged a Republican. These are serpents, my friend. Make no mistake about it. Then there's Congress Lady Cortez, whatever her name is, the radical socialist. She says, is anyone archiving these Trump sycophants for when they try to downplay or deny their complicity in the future? What she's saying is, you need to mark all these people, those who voted for him, those who helped him, because we need to mark them when they try to deny that they was with him, because she wants to take your jobs away from you. Not only the political leaders, they don't want them to get other jobs outside the Trump administration, but also those that voted for him. Are they after you? Yes. Leading Democrats has started what they call, quote, Trump Accountability Project, launched on November the 3rd. Its purpose being to never forget, they say, and not allow those who elected him, that's me and you, staffed his government and funded him to profit from their experience. They want to culture cancel you and me. They want us to lose our jobs. They want to stop us from getting jobs. They want to take us out of society. They did call us deplorable. Me saying they want to take us out of society? Is that a stretch just a little bit? I don't think so.
Let us brace ourselves. The task is twofold. The terrorist Trump must be defeated, must be destroyed, must be devoured at the ballot box. And then he and his enablers and his supporters and his collaborators and the Mike Lees and the William Barrs and the Sean Hannitys and the Mike Pences and the Rudy Giulianis and the Kyle Rittenhouses and the Amy Coney Barretts must be prosecuted and convicted and removed from our society while we try to rebuild it. That the fight is not just to win an election, but to win it by enough to chase, at least for a moment, Trump and the maggots off the stage.
So we're deplorables. We're Walmart people. We're sycophants, according to AOC, which means parasites. And now to Mr. Obelman, we're maggots. This is coming from leading stages of the media. This is coming from people holding office in our government. That we, I, you, anyone that voted for Trump is a maggot. I told you. They're after us, brother. Ain't no paranoia connected to it. It's a simple fact. And you need to understand this. This election is not over. And if the Almighty God's testimony with Donald Trump is still in place, it matters not what the Democrats do, what the media does, or what the law and the courts do. If Mr. Trump's testimony is not finished, trust me, Mr. Trump will be your president.
Things were simple and good back then. Neighbors helped neighbors, and friends were friends. The Bible was a book we all believed in. Gas was cheap back then. The 5 and dime, they sold things cheap. Mama stayed at home and helped us children be. Boys and girls you'd be glad to see. Back when things were good. Back when things were good. For the world came undone. Before the evil one's ways we learned. For the Bible and the flag got burned. Back when things were good. When a man's word was still good as gold. For he went astray and lost his soul. Back when things were good. Right was right and wrong was wrong. A woman's love was pure and a man's back was strong. We pulled together, that's what made us strong. Back when things were good. Back when things were good. Before the world came undone. Before the evil one's ways we learned. Before the Bible and the flag got burned. Back when things were good. When a man's word was still good as gold. Well, went astray and lost his soul. Back when things were good.